I want to tell you all about a beautiful variety of rose that exists called the blue moon. It's not blue. We have not been able to create the blue rose yet, but it is a beautiful lilac color, almost like this. Well, here it looks gray, but if you look at the picture, it's beautiful. Reminds me of a really fancy ball of comb, so that's something I'd love to draw one day. Hope Tony's doing better. I thought she had to do a lot more medical things and not to give up. I'd love to talk about on here a little later on is geology. You know, up until recently, I didn't know there were so many different kinds of rock either. Like, a lot of us probably know about metamorphic, sedimentary, and igneous, but there's so many different kinds of sedimentary rock. From igneous rock, you can learn things like the amount of silica that determines how much lava flows. Sedimentary rock can tell you what the environment was like when that rock sedimented. Like if you find rock that looks like a bunch of pebbles smushed together, it probably formed in a stream or a river. And then you can look at the rock and go, oh, there was a river or a stream here millions of years ago. Detective work. I also didn't know this, but apparently the polarity of the Earth just switches. Like it's regularly switched back and forth over the billions of years that the Earth has existed. And igneous rock will record the polarity that the Earth had when they would be formed. So that's how we found out about things like the seafloor growing. Is some rocks were older, and the newer, younger rock that was really close to the mid-ocean ridge, bringing the seafloor into stuff. It reminded me of growing like new skin. A lot of pavement actually reminds me of scar tissue too, and like things like lava and the mantle, they sort of remind me of like blood. Something else I didn't really think about recently is that like teeter rocks, teeth are made of minerals. So are things like animal shells. I think a lot of times humans think of rocks as completely separate from them because obviously they're not alive, they don't move, things like that. But we also have a lot of in common, like some of the things in our bodies, like bones, they're still made of just like the elements in a way you could call them. Something else I didn't know until recently, there's three different kinds of sand. I don't remember them all off the top of my head. There's like sand that's made from living things being broken down. There's sand that's made from the precipitate left over from the water, and there's sand that's just made by eroding rock. The sand that's made from living things, that's something we could use if we go to other planets and we want to find out did they have life or do they have life now? We can look for that kind of sand. It's the same thing with rust. We only have rust because the iron is oxidizing. It's getting hit with oxygen. And we only have oxygen because tiny life forms are creating it as part of their cycle of life. I don't know if I would want to go to space, but it's really fun to learn about. For example, one of Saturn's moons, Enceladus, recently we found out it has the chemical ingredients necessary for life. I'd have to like pick up my notes on that. I don't have them in front of me, but it was really fun to hear about the same things that we know on Earth. Eventually, life happens, and Earth also has those things. There's some kind of cause and effect there. This moon of this really big planet would take years and years to get to. It has all those same things. One of the reasons people find Mars so interesting too, the red color, rust, iron oxide. You know, it has those caps. I'm reading a sci-fi story one day. I don't know if I would want it to be about. I don't know if I'd want it to be like a space opera, but it could be fun to explore just like what other planets could be like and what kind of rocks they have on them, what kind of weather they have, if they ever have life, and probably do some kind of really cool giant robot. What I learned too about the moon. I always wondered why the side that faced us was like the interesting side, the one that's fun to look at, and the other one is just kind of blank. And the thing is, because a lot of things have scattered the moon throughout the years, got impacts from meteors and things just slamming into it. And at the time, the impact had a lot of heat, so it would heat up the rock, it turns molten, it turns into lava, and those lava flows created what looks like the ocean on the moon. They're not flows of water, they're flows of lava that's cooled off. It's the same idea. And that makes the one side of the moon heavier than the other. Since gravity pulls on things more strongly if they're heavier, that means the Earth's gravity grabs onto that side and makes it always face us. It's called orbital locking. The moon goes through so much. Right now, our best theory for how it even got created is something about the size of Mars lands into the Earth, a bunch of debris broke off, and it formed into the moon. That just sounds painful. Well, Earth, too, is the only planet we know of that has tectonic forces. We're the only planet that has plates moving around and convection in the mantle and things like that. The more I think about it, too, the more I can see why people compare the ocean to space. For example, it's mostly very dark, it's mostly very cold, and a lot of it is empty. A lot of the ocean is the abyssal plain, which is basically a fancy word for the seafloor. There's not much happening, there's not much on it. And in space, a lot of it is space. It's just emptiness. And then there's little clusters of galaxies and whatever. In the ocean, most of the life lives closer to the continent. It's not as abundant way deep in the ocean or further out. Because it's harder to live there. There's less light and less food. That's why a lot of creatures are small or make their own light. They can't really afford to eat lots of food. I know there's some big creatures down there, like the colossal squid, but it's been theorized that they swim up to eat, and then they just go back down into the really dark, cold part of the ocean to chill out. Another thing the ocean has in common with space, we haven't explored that much of it. lot of alien designs inspired by creatures like octopuses. There's probably a reason for that. Maybe that they're really intelligent or capable. Yesterday I was learning about metamorphic rocks, and for that, it never really occurred to me how rocks can be like folded like dough. When you have a rock that already exists, but you apply heat and pressure to it, that's what creates a metamorphic rock. And when it has like a layered texture to it, it looks like you folded a blanket and pressed down. That's called foliation. And by looking at the foliation, we can tell, okay, the pressure must have been coming like from this direction and makes the folds go like this. Like you were pressing down on a blanket, the top was folded up. So you can use that to tell how much pressure there was on the rope and what direction it was coming. We are called that because of metamorphosis, one thing changing into another. In geology too, precipitation just means the opposite of dissolving. Like that's what it describes that process. And that's actually how you can create a lot of rocks is chemicals like appear and they become solid and eventually enough of them form into a rock. Or you can just have like super fine rock like clay, which is the leftovers from when other rocks are being chemically broken down. If you put like pressure on that for a long, long time, eventually it turns into its own rock. Clay we usually find in deep waters. So if you find a lot of clay in one area, you can go, oh, this place used to be under deep water. The siltstone, which is obviously created from silt, being like really, really tight, that's usually found in lakes. Usually lakes with like a very silty floor. So if you find that somewhere, you can go, oh, this place used to have a lake. And sandstone is kind of, it is what it is. It's just sandstone. But you can find that in a lot of environments. amount of grain size, that can tell you a lot, even with igneous rocks. For example, fine-grained igneous rocks. Those cooled quickly, and they did it above ground. So they came up above ground, and then they were like, that's much colder than what I'm used to inside of the earth. They cool down really quickly. But if you find one that's coarse grained, that means it cools slowly below the ground. Because it's really hot under there. It couldn't cool off that quickly. Mm-hmm. Should be it. Well, it's nice.